Buda Castle is the Hungarian palace complex of the Hungarian kings in Budapest. Its building started in 1247 and it had been finished in 1265. It was built on the southern tip of Castle Hill, bounded on the north by what is known as the Castle District, Várnegyed. It is rich in medieval, Baroque and 19th century houses, churches and public buildings. In the middle of the castle there is the famous Matthias Church, and in front of it stands the fabulous Christian Trinity statue, which was placed there in 1713 and is designed by Ungleich Fülöp and Hörger Antal in Baroque style. It has been on the hand of several Hungarian dynasties and also on the hand of the Turkish. Due to this fact, it have had some ups and downs. I mean, the castle was destroyed and built up again few times. The medieval palace was destroyed in the Great Siege of 1686 when Buda was captured by Allied Christian forces. In a heavy artillery bombardment, many buildings burned and collapsed. The Stephen's Tower, used as a gunpowder store by the Ottomans, exploded when hit by a single cannon said to have been fired by a friar called Gábor, or also referred as Tüzes Gábor. According to contemporary sources, the explosion killed as many as 1,500 Turkish soldiers and caused a tidal wave on the Danube that washed away artillery batteries and the guards standing on the opposite shore. Habsburg military engineers made several plans and drawings of the buildings in subsequent decades. Although the walls mainly survived, the burned-out shell rapidly decayed from a lack of maintenance. Between 1702 and 1715, Stephen's Tower disappeared completely, and the palace was beyond repair. In 1715, King Charles III ordered the demolition of the ruins. Johann Höbling surveyed the still existing structures. The king ordered the surviving marble statues, antiquities, inscriptions, and coins should be spared. There is no evidence about the realization of the royal decree. The main part of the palace and the broken tower were totally demolished, the hollows and moats were filled, and a new flat terrace was established. The southern fortifications, swingers, and rooms were buried under tons of rubbish and earth. The Budapest History Museum is located in the southern wing of Buda Castle over 4 floors. It presents the history of Budapest from its beginnings until the modern era. The restored part of the medieval castle, including the royal chapel and the rib-vaulted Gothic hall, belongs to the exhibition. The highlights of the exhibition are the Gothic statues of Buda Castle and the 14th century silk tapestry decorated with the Angevin coats of arms. Small gardens were recreated in the medieval swingers around the oldest parts of the building. The Hungarian National Gallery is located in the same wing of the Buda Castle and also in the same building as the BHM. The museum presents the history of Hungarian art from the 11th century until the present, with a special exhibition concentrating on Gothic altarpieces. The only surviving interior from the pre-war royal palace and the Palatina crypt belongs to the museum. The rest of this building occupied by the National Széchenyi Library, the National Library of Hungary. Its collection of rare and antique books, codex, and manuscripts contains 35 Corvina pieces from the famous library of King Matthias Corvinus.
Matthias Church is a Roman Catholic church located in Budapest, Hungary, in front of the Fisherman's Bastion at the heart of Buda's Castle district. According to church tradition, it was originally built in Romanesque style in 1015. The current building was constructed in the florid late Gothic style in the second half of the 14th century and was extensively restored in the late 19th century. The first church on the site was founded by Saint Stephen, King of Hungary in 1015. This building was destroyed in 1241 by the Mongols. The current building was constructed in the later half of the 13th century, originally named after the Virgin Mary, taking names such as the Church of Mary and the Church of Our Lady. Matthias Church was named after the King Matthias in the 19th century. The church was the scene of several coronations, including that of the fourth Charles in 1916. It was also the site for King Matthias' two weddings. The church was also the location of the Mary Wonder. In 1686, during the siege of Buda by the Holy League, a wall of the church collapsed due to cannon fire. It turned out that an old votive Madonna statue was hidden behind the wall. Although following Turkish expulsion in 1686 an attempt was made to restore the church in the Baroque style, it was not until the great architectural boom towards the end of the 19th century that the building regained much of its former splendor. The architect responsible for this work, undertaken in 1873 to 1976, was Frigyes Sulek. The church was restored to its original 13th century plan, but a number of early original Gothic elements were uncovered. The church was the venue of the coronations of the last two Hungarian Habsburg kings, Franz Joseph in 1867 and the fourth Charles in 1816. During the Second World War, the church was badly damaged. Matthias Church was used as a camp by the Germans and Soviets in 1944 to 1945 during the Soviet occupation of Hungary. The church was largely renovated between 1950 to 1970 with funding from the Hungarian government. The bell towers was restored along with renovation of interior paints and frescoes, and 5 manual organ, which had been destroyed during the war, was updated and sanctified in 1984. The church was restored to its original 13th century plan, but a number of early original Gothic elements were uncovered. The church was the venue of the coronations of the last two Hungarian Habsburg kings, Franz Joseph in 1867 and the fourth Charles in 1816. Things to do and see at Matthias Church. Matthias Church is one of the oldest buildings in Buda. It's not only a church, but a museum as well. Its frescoes are the works of famous Hungarian painters. Every year, the church hosts several concerts featuring Hungarian and foreign musicians. One of the most popular concert series is called the Sunday Organ Nights at the Matthias Church. Since it's located on Castle Hill, there are many other sites nearby that are worth visiting. Castle Hill is also great for walks and admiring the beautiful buildings while following the cobblestone streets, which maintain their medieval courses. Getting to Matthias Church. Take the funicular from Cambridge, the public bus called Warbus from Székelymanter, or one of the many paths leading up to Castle Hill.
The romantic notion was to recall the old times, so Halászbástya is often linked to a castle prop which doesn't feel real. It wasn't meant to be like a fairy tale, feel like a history, rather than be history. The Fisherman's Bastion is in all likelihood one of the most visited attractions in Budapest. This is the place where locals and tourists come to enjoy the city views. But what is the history of Halászbástya? The Fisherman's Bastion was built between 1895 and 1902 as part of the series of developments that were to celebrate the 1000th birthday of the Hungarian state. Consequently, the bastion was inspired by the architectural style of the early medieval times, approx the year 1000, when the first Hungarian king started his rule. What is more, the seven towers of the Halászbástya features the seven Hungarian chieftains who had led their tribes to the present-day Hungary to settle down in 895, and the statue of Stephen King, the first Hungarian king. In short, it is a historical monument for the millennial Hungary. The architect of the Halászbástya is Frigyes Sulek, who also restored and redesigned the Matthias Church. The construction of the Fisherman's Bastion is intertwined with the restoration of church. Its historical architectural style was also picked to suit the church, redesigned in a later medieval style. The T-shaped bastion arrangement was to embrace the church while enchaining its beauty, and also to connect the castle hilltop with the Danube-side settlement Fishtown and Watertown. The bastion was built as a viewing terrace with lookout towers on the base of a stretch of the castle walls, rather than building sturdy, thick stone walls. The intention was to present the locals with the communal panorama terrace, as the Buda castle was no longer considered to be a military place. The romantic notion was to recall the old times, so Halászbástya is often likened to a castle prop which doesn't feel real. It wasn't meant to be like a fairy tale, feel like a history, rather than be history. From bottom to top, the statue of John Hunyadi, the statue of George piercing the dragon, the replica of the 15th century statue in Prague made by the medieval Hungarian masters, the Kolozsvári brothers, and the 10th century soldiers graduating the gate. During the construction of the Fisherman Bastion, the medieval underground St. Michael Chapel was revealed and part of it incorporated into the bastion. You can descend into the shape from the Fisherman's Bastion. During the construction of the Fisherman Bastion, the medieval underground St. Michael Chapel was revealed and part of it incorporated into the bastion. You can descend into the shape from the Fisherman's Bastion. Why is it called Halászbástya? There are several theories for explaining the origin of the name. One says that the walls were protected by the fishermen who lived below the walls, in Watertown, also known as Fishtown in Budapest, and who also protected the walls in wartime. Others say that the name was used simply commemorating the fishermen who lived in Watertown by the river Danube, but who didn't necessarily serve as guardians of the city. Why is it called Halászbástya? There are several theories for explaining the origin of the name. One says that the walls were protected by the fishermen who lived below the walls, in Watertown, also known as Fishtown in Budapest, and who also protected the walls in wartime. The chapel in Fisherman's Bastion. St. Michael's Chapel in the Fisherman's Bastion is the first mentioned in the medieval chronicles. The chapel inside the Fisherman's Bastion opens in 2013. You can visit the chapel for a small entrance fee.
flow. Sometimes I believe, at times I'm rational. I can fly